Oh, wait, the one in downtown Miami. No, I haven't. I heard it was like but I don't know. No, I know. Like I've been on the outside. Yeah, like
No, they
yeah. Of course, we're not going to enjoy it. All right.
Oh no, like, oh, you want to send it to your email, send it to your phone.
Oh, if you sent it to my phone, I got nothing.
I don't know. Maybe like Friday. Not this Friday.
Let me see my schedule.
Yeah.
This Friday I cannot, but
Next is fall break.
I know, but we're gonna pay.
Yeah, it's when you like.
Sorry.
No, but
Sorry, hold on.
I work 10:30 to 5:15.
Yeah. Well, that's like my hope is that I memorize like by well, it's a little too late to hear if you want to.
I know. But like, I don't know,
I think I got it.
I believe that sometimes they give us some information.
Thanks for discussing.
Next Friday, I
10:30.
yeah, because I'm going to Orlando. Yeah, I'm going to and then I go to DC yeah. No, driving and then flying. No, then I'm gonna. Well, I'm going with my parents' house. They're gonna come back by themselves, and then I'll come back. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, you see, it looks pretty nice. Like, and they're like really nice. Like, they have like this whole like luncheon and like stuff. And it seems like they really are into hospitality.
Hello.
Well, okay, yeah, they have a hospitality MD program. I said I was interested in it just to say it, but like, but
Got it.
yeah, no, it's good. But for this, I think everybody.
Okay,
I'm looking at here, I'm like 61.
before we, let's get our name tags out, what we'll do is, I'll do a lecture and also answer any questions that you have for the exam. I'll do a mini review. Those of you who have open-ended questions, if it's important, I'll address it. Otherwise, I'll say we'll talk about it next time. I'll also talk about next week's assignment. Questions before we begin? Get up. Eraser. So why don't you do me a favor, you want to start a roll?
You got it.
And then put in, on the top, put in the date of Wednesday, October 10th, 2018.
Yep.
And our course number, and then put in first, last, email. And then what I'd like you to do is we've had a number of homework assignments. So I'd like you to grade yourself from out of 10. So if you think 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and what I suggest you do is try to assess yourself fairly, because I'm looking at it too. So it doesn't look good if you just think you're great and then you just basically turned in half. So basically assess yourself. So he'll start making a roll, put yourself as number 1, and the last person, give me back the roll, okay? Any questions before I begin? Did you have things that you wanted to ask me and you just didn't get a chance? Nada?
Could you explain the difference between what is it, forecasting and backcasting?
Okay, beautiful question. Okay, beautiful question. You know how they always say there are no stupid questions? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
I never believed that, do you?
Yeah, I think that's a lie.
Right, but that's a good question. Cindy, that's a good question, okay? All right, so the question becomes, what's the difference difference between back testing and, oh, be good if you could see what I was doing, huh? I'm going all the way. Let's see if we can see what I have here. Let's see. Okay, you see what I'm doing now? Folks, if you want to talk, Emily, if you want to speak, text. Okay. Back testing, it's hard for me to speak. Back testing and forecasting of data. And let's do this. Make sure that we're broadcasting. Let me see if I can. So that's a good overview when we talk about data. So the whole idea of data is what, Cindy? If you think about our data, what do we want? We know that we want to collect data. We know that we want to make it clean, right? We want to collect the correct data. And then what do we want to do? Once we have the data, what do we want to do?
Want to analyze it?
We want to analyze it for what purpose?
If you're talking about health data, you want to analyze it to improve outcomes.
Right, basically to make some decisions, right? It may not even improve. We can analyze data And it may not even be just to improve health outcomes, right? But maybe eventually it will be, but it may be just even to see what the state of the art where we are. So, let's do this. If I need data, I'm going to use, Cindy, you're going to work with me, right? It's as if we rehearsed it, okay? So one of the things that I need to do is I need to get data. I can analyze companies, for instance, healthcare sector companies. Anybody know what the stock market did today? Anybody?
It
Huh?
went down.
It went down. How much? Quite a bit. And what sectors seem to really go down a lot was the technology sectors. And there's an opportunity. Now, when a stock market goes down, can we make money on the stock market when it goes down?
Yeah.
Yes, by what?
By
By what? By shorting, by basically betting that we may be seeing the trends may be going down. So the first thing that I need to do in data, and you can look at it, is data needs to have a way in which I can receive that data. I don't want to be typing the data, right? I want to get it from a feed. So I'm going to go and get this from a feed where I'm going to go File, Connect, and in this case, I can get external data, and that's one of the things that you want to be able to do is I can get data from my own organization, or I can get data from third-party sources. And now I can connect, and I can connect to end of day. And let's see if we connected. It looks like we connected, right? And now, let me do a chart. And if I do a chart, and if I go to the Dow 30, right, I have I can pick a stock from the Dow 30. Let me just even pick here Apple. Now we can even think about Apple as maybe even a healthcare, getting into healthcare. How? Cindy, how is Apple getting into healthcare?
They have a lot of personal technology.
Right, so they're doing wearables as possibilities that we're going to do wearables. So in this case, I'll just say okay, and I have daily. So I can see here that this looks like right at this point, what does it seem to be? It looks like it was going down. So if I can tell, and let me just do this. You see this little cursor here? I can make it like a crosshair, and I can look at this cursor where I can see at this point on 10.3, what does it look like it did on 10.4, and on 10.5, and on 10.6? What direction do you see this going?
Down.
Down. Now, what I can do many times is I can create what I call a strategy. And what a strategy is it's instructions to the computer based on indicators to tell the computer when to enter or exit a trade. Or maybe when to buy, when to sell, when to buy something, when to short. And what I can see here is I have a number of indicators. You see this? When I move this over, I get indicators. And I can get, they have a lot of built-in indicators, or I can create my own. Some of these indicators, for instance, you see this one? Can you see this? This says what? What does this one say? What I just clicked, huh?
Regression channel?
Regression channel, for instance. And I can say, okay, or apply. I can do, what else did we go over? Did we go over R square? Right? So I can say I want new R square. Now what's the value of R square? Who can tell me? It's a nice review, huh? Kelly, what's the value of R square? R square goes what values?
Oh, the range of values?
Yeah,
Is it 0 to 1?
it sure is. It's 0 to 1, and we can basically think about it. 1 is basically that I can think that I have no errors of 100%, and 0 is that I don't see there's any relationship. So I see in this case, for instance, it gave me an R square, and notice that where I have from 1 all the way up to the low of 0. Does it ever, if I look at this red line here, Kelly, you're on a roll, does it ever seem to reach 1?
No.
No, but it gets high up there, right? And this may be able to tell what I can do in my indicators is based on a number of indicators. I can tell the computer, for instance, when it reaches to, let's say, 0.9, or when it's at, for instance, at this point at 0.3, and it's trending up, and then when it reaches 0.9, then we want to get out of the trade because it means that it's gotten too high. See how this one right here seems to, if I look up above, it seems to almost be just right there at the same point when it's peaking. So it could be we could look at something like that. And then if I go to strategies, so those are indicators. I can have a number of indicators, and the strategy then, I'll just do like the sample crossover, and I'll enable it by doing what? True. And say apply. And okay. And now this is the key, Cindy, of what you were looking at back testing. Back testing is I created a model. We created, or we bought, or it was built in, or we got a team that created a strategy to tell us when we should buy, when we should sell short, when should we get out of the market. And it basically, what do we want to do is we want to see how reliable that strategy is. So the word back means look back in time or look forward in time. The word back testing. Back in time. So before I put my money in this, before I decide to implement my bank account and let the computer trade for me, I want to check, is this model reliable and will it be profitable for the companies that I invest in? So I want the computer to go back in time. You see here, where am I going here when I'm scrolling? I'm going back in time and getting the computer to see how well this strategy performed. And how I can do it is I can go to strategy performance. You see that? And you see that it says right here, it says what? Sample M8 crossover. And I want to look at, when I look at my strategy, I want to look at historical and real time. And based on Apple back testing it for how long? The start date was 10/10/2017, and the ending date was what? 10/10/2018. Based on that model there, How well did I do? What? Not too well. I can lose money on my own. I don't need it, you know, right? I could bet, right? We could go together and we can bet. So this strategy based on this company of Apple, based on the strategies we have, is not profitable. And if I look at it, see, I had losing trades, and I can go through this. This is back testing, and it will tell me the number of times. It will tell me the average. You see this, the average of losing trades, the start date, the profit factor. Anytime I see all those, it tells me my gross loss, right? My profit factors as well. So that is back testing. So before I implement, so you can put it in your mind here, is before I execute my strategy and put it in real time and hook it up to my bank account, I want to back test it. Now, back test means what? How it did in the past. From 2000, let's say for that year, or for the past 6 months, or the past month. But what are we going to be trading on? The past? What? Deb?
The future, so we can ask forecast.
So we're going to have to forecast. So back testing tells me how reliable my strategy is. Forecasting will then tell me what I should do in the future. And then I'm going to use my R-square, right, Kelly? That my R-square, what do I want? A higher R-square or a lower R-square? A higher R-square to give me more reliability, right? And I may use different forecasting techniques. What were some of the forecasting techniques we did? We did a linear regression, and we did a polynomial regression. And it may be, in this point, we may say, when my linear and my polynomial are in the same trend for forecasting forward, remember we're forecasting forward, then what do I want to do is then I may then take the trade. And then I want to keep on testing to see how accurate my forecast was. So that's why I wanted you to do a number of forecasts on a number of days when you knew the results. So after you know the results, you say, hey, this was right on target. It told me I should be shorting now. It was telling me, right? Or it tells me, in this case, it's telling me to short and the market's going up. Or the error is some days it's correct, sometimes it's not correct. And what you're doing in a team, what you have is you're refining your algorithms as you go. In two ways, back testing it to see how well it did in the past, and also be able to see how well it does in forecast. But the main thing is back testing is not enough, Cindy, because it's just like if I were asking you, how did you do on the past test? And you say, I'm an A student, right? So I have to forecast. And I say, hey, that's pretty reliable that among all your tests you did really well. You got all A's, but then I have to forecast how are you going to do on the next test, right? I'm going to take that information, right? I have some reliable information, but I may be, right? Your last test you got 98 and 99, right? And then the next test you may get 90 because, I don't know, you had some other problems. You had some more tests that you had to do. There were other confining problems that we weren't aware of. So it's the same thing with health information, right? That when you say I want better outcomes, right, when I'm going to be doing a data analytics and I'm forecasting, then I have a sample, but what am I wanting to do? I want to forecast what will happen in the future, right? Those people that we studied, right, how are they going to react then in the future? So it's either what we're talking about, either our healthcare stocks or even our other health analytic data is what we're going to do in the future.
That helps.
And the words even say it. I'm going to forecast what, right? Forecast the hurricane, right? Versus, and then you want to see how well the models were. Have you ever seen that in the beginning, 5 days along? They'll have like the European model and they'll have the US model, and one's going this way, one's going this way. And the closer they are to time, what do? They start narrowing, and basically my R square becomes what? Closer as I get to landfall. What happens to my R squared, Kelly?
It goes up.
To almost, it's not going to be 100%, but close to it, right? And why did they say I like the European model versus why do they say the European model is more reliable? Because they've been testing along, but it doesn't mean that next hurricane the European model will be better than the others. But you can see along that data, it's the same idea. That the back testing, they're looking now how well it did. So all those meteorologists, what are they saying? How far in the back were they able to do? So one of the problems in the hurricane was what? That some people said they didn't leave because 3 days ago they only thought it was a category 1, right? And then it was a category 2, and then it was a category 3. So everybody was shocked when they woke up and it's category 4 with all those winds. So what was it about those? Why were they incorrect? What was it about those models that they couldn't anticipate? So they had what? Some errors there. Right? And this hurricane is different than the other. So this market, all of a sudden now, when it was booming, all of a sudden, what happened today? There could be extraneous information that we don't want to do. We can get sentiment, we can get trends, we can get other things around to help us, external data to help us with it. So it's an excellent question, and we were able together to solve it. What else? Anything else that I need to have you look at? Okay. So we talked about the forecast where we talked about. So let me do this. Let me prepare you for next week. And then after I prepare you for next week, we'll take a little short break, and then we'll take the exam that I see here that everybody's so excited to do. Had I known that everybody was so excited about the exam, I would have given more. But anyways. Okay, so let me just go back to, let's go to our regular class on Blackboard. You can be with me if you want. On my regular class on Blackboard, I have my web links, and at the bottom of my web links I have a couple of links I would like you to look at for next time. First, there's something called SQL versus no SQL. Anybody know what SQL is? Yes, Faith. What's SQL?
SQL is a data analytics tool. It's for big data use. You can basically store huge amounts of data.
In SQL?
Yes.
Okay.
And use it, manipulate it, clean it, all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Any other ideas? Deb, do you have any you
I
want
would
to?
say it's for structured query language. That's what it stands for.
Okay, first of all, SQL stands for Structured
Query,
Query Language. Okay, I'm hearing myself twice. I'm hearing like a feedback from myself, so if we can get it. Okay, so structured query language. So what does that mean, structured query language? A database, you can think about it as like a table. And where do we know a table from? Where have we used a table? Excel spreadsheet. And what did Excel spreadsheet have? It had rows, and what else did it have? Columns. No brain. It had rows and it had columns. in computer science, they make terminology also to make themselves like they know something that you don't. Basically, you know a column and you know a row. They call it differently. They call a row a record, and they call a column a field. In structured, it means that I know ahead of time what my data dictionary will look like. So what's a data dictionary? Everybody knows what a dictionary is, right? So instead of giving me the definitions of words, a data dictionary gives me the definitions of my fields. It tells me which fields do I have in the table, and it also tells me what type of data I want in that table. So if I want a date, it'll be a date field. If I want it numeric, it'll be a numeric field. If I want it to be a string, like to manipulate words, it'll be a string. If they're large digits, I'll give it larger ones. If I want to use decimal places, I'll give it with decimals. Everybody with me? So basically, a data dictionary is just like a dictionary. It tells the user of the data how those fields should appear and what is the description of those fields. It doesn't give me the data per se, but tells me what data fields, what am I going to call those data fields, and why is that important? Because when I pass information, right, I want to be able to say what? C number, or I want to say patient ID number, and we all know what patient ID number is. Next of kin.
Pretty far behind.
I'm getting feedback here. Let me just lower this so I don't hear it as much. Okay, so I have my data dictionary. So structured query language, the difference here, Faith, is it's not necessarily for big data. Structured query language is an old language, an old query language that is able to look at structured data and query it or ask questions to it, and I'll get the data that I want back. It does not have to be big data. So I can say, give me all the patients who the gender is female, who the age is older than 40. How does it know the age older than 40? Because I have the date of birth, right? And what does the computer have? Today's date, right? And we're going to just subtract today's date from the date of birth, and we can find all those females that have the gender. And give it to me in a report. That's structured query language. That has been around since the 1970s. But it works. No SQL. Who's ever heard of that? Danny, did you ever hear of it?
SQL, yeah.
No SQL.
Oh, no.
Okay. So what do I ask you to do, Danny?
You probably want me to look it up.
I probably do, right? You just think because there's an exam I'm not going to make you work? And you say to me, I'm going to be working hard enough for that exam, huh? And you're still hassling me, is that right? You're giving me no. Okay. Nothing you're giving me. Is that what you're going to try to tell me? No break. And you were just so happy being quiet over there, huh?
Yeah.
Hopefully she wouldn't call on me, right? Was that the idea? Uh-huh. So basically, for next week, we're not going to do it now, But for next week, I'd like you to read this article about the differences between SQL and no SQL, and especially, Danny, you need to know this, right? And teach everyone else, because this is the latest of the greatest using big data. So Faith and I were just rehearsing it. She just said on purpose it's big data, so Danny would just be sleeping in the back. But really, what it is SQL has been traditional. It's been with small data, with larger data, but no SQL data is basically saying the no means what? What does the S stand for, Danny? Structure. The no means what? No structure. So lately now, if you're going on the internet, right, and you're going to get blogs and you're going to be ad hoc trying to get data, is it completely structured? Do you know all the data fields? Do you know what types of data? And now I'm going to get video. Is video now available, right? I'm going to get in video. I'm going to get different ways. So it's not as structured, and I still want to make meaning out of it. The whole idea, back to what we're saying, is data. What's the purpose is to make it meaningful. Meaningful to get better outcomes, meaningful to be more profitable, meaning to stay in business, meaning to sell more, meaning to reduce costs. It can be a lot of different things. Cindy, at the whole, right, for healthcare, our main thing is that if we're within a health organization, I do not want to be so involved with all this technology that I forget about getting better health outcomes, right, that people are doing. So this is that SQL that I would like you to read for next time, and they're basically trying to show you. Have you ever heard of these, Danny? I'm asking you because you're a data analytics major, right? I'm not picking on you for any other reason. I just want you to get onto my shoulders and even soar higher, right? Or something like that. There's some song like that there must be, right? On my shoulders, you'll soar higher or something like that. Later on, we'll find it on YouTube or something, and we'll sing it together. Okay, so in this case here, the relational database, you've heard about Oracle, you've heard about SQL Server, right, Danny? And have you heard about MySQL?
Yeah.
What have you heard about it?
I mean, I've used it.
Okay, and MySQL is open source. What does open source mean? That it's, what? Yes, it's like Wikipedia, but open source means what? That one of the things is how much does it cost? You know me, I'm cheap. What? Free. It's free, and it's used for a lot of back end, especially for the web. And non-relational databases or no SQL these are ones, you don't have to worry about that now, but you can just see the comparison. So the advantages you can see here and the disadvantages and conclusion. All right? The other thing that I would like you to rate, so go to the very end and see SQL versus no SQL. You'll see here healthcare big data. And this is what we're going to be talking about next week, and that is blockchain, which is really another type of database. The idea of blockchain, people, I don't know if it's kind of overhyped, but people in the healthcare industry, because we have all this data and we have all this healthcare big data, they're exploring a new technology called blockchain. And it has the potential, I don't know on the hype, but people are thinking about it in revolutionizing EHRs, right, electronic health records, interoperability, and the exchange of healthcare big data. All the problems or the challenges that we face in healthcare data, people are trying to look and trying to resolve. So everybody knows what ONC, you could use that what in terms of one of your acronyms, right, on your sheet today, was on the ONC, the Office of the National Coordinator, basically was trying to do an informational blockchain challenge. And basically a number of companies tried, and basically this is the case here. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. Is blockchain then is a methodology for conducting transactions that relies on decentralized approach. And what do I mean by decentralized approach? In a database management system, we're talking about centralized. What does that mean? That we have one database where the data is stored and it's centralized. And then we use, for instance, SQL to query that one centralized database. Decentralized means the approach for authorization and edits is basically on a peer-to-peer transaction, and I replicate the data along a chain. You hear the word blockchain? Chain? There's another song, Chain, Chain, Chain. Anybody know that song? Anyways, along the chain then of the blockchain, that you'll be able then to have a way to do financing, marketing, and healthcare. What the key here is, the word is immutable. What does the word immutable mean, Faith? Okay, who knows what immutable means? Yes, what? You can't change. Is that important in healthcare? Data, yeah. So that idea of inherently then of interoperability and creating those blockchains then rewards here is that it's immutable and that we can create a trusted environment for making decision-making abilities. So a lot of people are trying it out. MIT is trying. A lot of companies, IBM is moving into this area and enabling then patient-centered interoperability and HIE. So we'll go over this, and in this article you can put in your notes here, I'd like you to look at this table. And next week I'd like you to come up, and after you try to understand it, write questions of what you don't understand. Just like you did, Cindy, today, explain to me now that back testing for forecasting. Because what I'm going to invite are people in the healthcare industry that are working on this area of blockchain. This is like the up and coming new technology where there's a lot of funding for this. But a lot of it is in the earliest stages, so you can make some ideas. So you can look at the pros, the cons. So this article, I found it to be very useful. And the last one, you have a little video clip that you can see, is that third one, blockchain in healthcare opportunities, challenges, and applications. Let me put that here. And I'd like you to just summarize, what do you think is the opportunities, and I love this, and memorize all this, no, just kidding. You can't even read it, let alone. This basically is they're trying to show you that this is the mess in what we have healthcare, and everybody trying to connect with one another. but it basically is interesting about the breaches in healthcare, how blockchain can help. Blockchain can help with the solutions, the privacy. There's something called distributed ledgers. We'll talk about it next time, but it's a shared ledger that we're going to distribute along the blockchain, and how some people are now saying that's the panacea, and everything is overhyped in this industry, and we just basically have to unhype it. There's something called permissioned and permissionless. There's something where I have a private blockchain versus a public blockchain, that I don't give it to everyone. And read through this. I'm going to spend time with it. We're talking about population health data and secure health startups. And even anybody hear about cryptocurrencies? Basically, you can give tokens, you can give rewards, and one of the ones that they're giving is basically drug traceability, that I can trace. Instead of getting the fake drugs, I can find basically along the blockchain, I can secure it and I can verify it. So this is the articles that I'd like you to read for next time. So just those last 4 links, go through those, try to summarize those, and just upload summaries of what you've gained from those articles. Questions? So let's do this. Let's take a short little break, stretch. Those of you that need to, get a drink, and then we will start the exam. Okay?
Is the exam multiple choice?
Part of it.
Part of it, gotcha.
Okay?
There's also, I think, a few multiple choice in that.
So let me close some of these ones. Okay, and if anyone has come up to me, ask questions. So let's start at 7:15. We'll start the exam. Okay? You can go get a drink or whatever you need. Okay. Let me stop the recording.